Hi, I'm John Moore with JHM Technologies. Today we're going to go over some of the features of the Infuser PRG. And to begin with, let's go ahead and power it up. So the power button is located down under the control panel, right here. You can see we're booting up on the display screen. Now, initially we have to enter a password. We have 3 levels of password. 1 is the operator, 2 is a supervisor for maintenance, and then 3 would be the molding supervisor, the one who's in charge of the area. We're going to go in as that molding supervisor. So I'll log in that password now, and then I enter. Now I'm at the power on screen. If my e-stop is pressed, I can hit power on and nothing will happen. It tells me there to release the e-stop, which is a simple twist release, power on. Now you can hear the control relay click, and we're at the main menu. So let's walk through the first feature. Let's look at manual injection. And that button is located right here. Tap on manual injection, and that opens up to the manual injection screen. On that screen, in the upper left corner, the first thing that we get is the resin temperature. Every time we mold, we want to put the resin in at the correct temperature. So obviously we have to make a setting for that. Now in manual, we will set the heat to temperature. Now that indicates the temperature of the actual block heater. The inject temperature is the temperature we wish the resin to be at as it's entering the mold. Normally, as we press here on the heat to temperature, oh, I'm sorry, I hit the inject temperature. Let me go up 1. There we go. All right. Heat to temperature I've set at 32. Now that's in centigrade, Celsius as it were. So what I've said then is I want it to be, say, 2 degrees, 3 degrees max over what my target injection temperature is, which I have set at 30. Now right below it, the actual temperature as it's sitting here today in the room is 26.7. Now as a point of interest, I've set the heater, which I mentioned has to be slightly higher, realizing if I set that at 30 and my target temperature at 30, well then the heater is just not going to quite get the resin where I want it, and it'll just fight there and we won't get it over the edge to where we want it to be at 30. So we always put the heater just a bit higher. But it's set to be inject to 30. But as I mentioned, we're only at 26.7. What you would notice then is if we had set the rest of the parameters, began the injection, and you hit start, as it were, the resin isn't going to go into the mold at that point. What you'd find is the machine is going to recirculate. What it's doing is it's heating up the heater block. The heater block only comes on during the time that the resin pump is actually moving in an injection mode, be it manual or automatic, or in a recirculation mode. So in this case, the resin would recirculate uncatalyzed up to the head, back to the tank that it's being drawn from, up through the pump, back to the mix head, and through in a circular fashion until the first drop at the mix head is at 30 degrees. Then the machine will automatically open the injection valve and begin the injection. That way we don't have resin that's, let's say, sitting in the hoses in that first lump of resin on a cold day and the resin is in those hoses. You'd get a slug of cold resin in the mold. We make sure that the resin at the head is at the prescribed temperature. So that understanding is important because initially there would be a moments of time, a couple minutes at this point when that much disparity, before that heater would be up to temp and that resin at the head would be right to go. All right, now injection pressure. Injection pressure is actually our limit. Now this is the case whether we're creating a recipe for automatic or manual. When we're considering pressure, most of us think of that as our main concern. Well, not all of us. Those that really understand the process realize it's flow rate that's our main concern. But the majority of the molders in the marketplace, they easily relate to pressure, thinking of blowing open the mold. Well, that is an interest and it is a concern. So what we'll do is we'll set an injection pressure maximum level. So let's just put a value in there for now. Let's just say 3 bar. So what we've said is once we get the rest of the parameters set for injection and we're flowing at a given rate that we'll prescribe, the machine will continue to flow at that rate, providing it does not exceed, as I've got set right now for this particular demonstration, at 3 bar. Let's go on. Catalyst. So we see here it's at the home base position of the catalyst pumps at 0.5%. Let's move that catalyst pump to 1.25%. So I'm going to enter in move to value to 1.25. Let me do that again, 1.25. Now, what we then have is the system is, you know what, I'm setting it, it's intense, so I'm going to give it 1.3. 1.3%, but you'll notice nothing happened. We have to tell it move. Now, you can see there, we've moved from the 0.5% to 1.3%. Now, that will then be our catalyst percentage in relation to the resin. So, if we want to change that, we can do so during injection in real time. We can make adjustments to that. Now, let's go over to our most important issue. That is flow rate. So, we're going to set a value. Now, here is the key. To maintain a consistent process, we must enter the mold with the resin flowing at the same velocity or the same flow rate every time. And this is the big difference between the Infuser series of equipment and what you may find in the market from others. Why is that so important? Well, think about it. Your mold is the same volume every time. You've got fiber in there. Ideally, you put in the exact same fiber loading every time. So what we're dealing with is an issue of volume. And we want to flow at a given rate, and that rate will impact the ability to influence the air to exit the mold. But you're right, you do want to concern yourselves with pressure. You don't want to have so much pressure to meet a flow rate that you blow the mold open. So we're going to set a value, and let's just say 1.3 liters a minute. Now, there are some basic numbers that we can offer you for a given laminate thickness, a given fiber loading, a viscosity of resin, gel times, and so on, mold size, that can give you some guidance. But very commonly, a 3 millimeter or 1/8 inch laminate, 25% by weight fiberglass reinforcement, typical resin viscosities, filled or unfilled in the 300 or less centipoise, very common to run at 1.3 liters a minute. And we wouldn't normally see anywhere near 3 bar of injection pressure at the mix head. Now that pressure that's entering into the mold is actually below that, which is another interest that we can talk about in a training program that's different than what we're going through here in this demo. So what we would have at this point, if we began the injection now, we're at 26.9, the machine would recirculate, as I said. As soon as it sees 30 degrees at the first drop of the mix head, it would open. The machine would then begin to ramp up in speed until it was at 1.3 liters a minute. Would do that providing, as I said, we didn't exceed 3 bar. But if we did exceed 3 bar, the machine is smart enough to stop, reset that set point for flow rate 10% lower, and begin flowing again. And if you had data collection, it would pick up that it made that change. But the machine is smart enough to react to pressure, but it's also smart enough to stay focused on flow rate. So therein lies the principles and the way to set up a manual injection. And the only other point of that is we start and we stop with the red and green button. The other feature is you can pause. If you hit the green start button during injection, you can pause. If you do that, if you're of the nature to say, let's just see if we need any more counts, let's just see what we witness, whatever the reason may be that you want to pause, you simply hit the green button, machine holds itself, hit the green button, it starts again, and then hit stop, the red button. Thank you very much.